Good evening. The NASSCOM product conclave brings together all the communities which constitute the vibrant innovation ecosystem in this sector. The investors, the entrepreneurs, the incubation center promoters, the accelerators, angel investors, mentors, you name them, they're all here. And this is the occasion where we get the opportunity to understand the enormity of what's happening. But in this session, we are looking at a slightly different aspect, which is the environment in which all of this is happening. And I'm talking about the thrust by the new government towards digital India. And in this session, there are two areas that we would talk about. One is to understand what this digital India means, what the concept is. And the second is, how does the concept of the digital India get combined with the power of this ecosystem which is building up so that digital India is powered to achieve scale and speed. To hear about the concept of digital India, who better than Mr. R.S. Sharma? He is the man on whose shoulders rests the responsibility in the government of anchoring, steering, and driving digital India within the government. I've known Mr. R.S. Sharma for many years. He's been a very passionate advocate of the power of technology. And he's also been the Director General of the UID Authority with Mr. Nandan Nilekani as the chairperson. So apart from being a passionate advocate of the power of technology to change and transform the country, he's also had a lot of experience in how to combine these objectives with the power, talent, and capability that exists outside the government. So this evening, we do hope to spend some time to get some of those perspectives also in terms of how all of you and everybody outside this room as well can actually help in this respect. I think we'll first, perhaps it would be good if you can share with this audience your, what is the concept of digital India, what are the different elements, and then we can move on maybe to the question so that that could be the basis for further discussion. So Mr. R.S. Sharma.
Thank you very much, sir. And as the format is what is called in conversation with, so maybe I'll sort of speak from here. Firstly, thank you very much, Ravi, and thank you very much, sir, for inviting me to this conclave. I always feel highly energized, in the midst of brilliant minds of this country. And when you invited me, when you just spoke with me, and I said, tomorrow there's a program in the Rashtrapati Bhavan at 11:40. So I said, the only way I can come in is that I come in the evening and I go back early morning. So, but it's always a privilege and pleasure to be here with you. So I really feel very, very happy being here. What I want to share with you in the next 10, 15 minutes is how the digital India got conceptualized and what is the rationale for having this program, and at this point of time, why are we sort of doing it? So I came to Delhi from my state, Jharkhand, Ranchi. I was posted. And I came on 1st of May. And on 26th of May, this new government came. And my turn to present the department came on 23rd of June. So I made a presentation, and the Prime Minister was there, and my minister was there, and other people were there. And I found that the presentation, which was slotted for about 30 minutes, actually, and we were told to restrict the slides to just about 10. That presentation lasted for 2.5 hours. And the Prime Minister was extremely interested, and he asked a lot of questions. And it was very clear that he's extremely passionate about using technology for delivering services and good things to people of this country. So what we did was we went back, and then we interacted with the Prime Minister's office, and they said, come up with something, really good program for digital India. The name was given by the Prime Minister himself, saying that, we want to have a digital India, like, Swachh Bharat and other Clean India and other kinds of things. So we said, yes, let's start it. And the first thing which we did was actually started that MyGov platform. I don't know, many of you may be familiar with. It's a citizen engagement platform which essentially calls for ideas from people and actually gives them tasks, discuss, do, disseminate. All these kinds of components are built in, and in a short period of time of about 2 months, we have 500,000 and more users of that. So once this happened, and then that function also, that was on 26th of July, he said, what happened of my Digital India part? So what we did was, as usual, bureaucrats, are very good at designing these things, what is the budget? What will head? Where will the money come from? What is the project? So we basically came up with a couple of, projects, as we always do. And then we wanted to present to the Prime Minister. But then we discussed among ourselves, and I said, this is not the way to, have a program like that. Digital India should really be a program and an umbrella kind of program, which should holistically look at the issues which our country is facing. And if we want to have a Digital India, what are the aspirational statements? What are the attributes of this Digital India? So that's what we should think about. And so there we kind of came up with, we brainstormed and we came up with some of those statements. And on those statements and on those attributes, the entire program is kind of built. So let me share with you some of those, aspirational statements, and the reasons behind them. So the first one is that any program of digitization, computerization, digital, that has to have connectivity as the basis. Without connectivity, you cannot have Digital India. So the first part is that we should provide broadband connectivity to every citizen of this country as a matter of right. And we want to do that. How do we go about it? So we already have a program called National Optical Fiber Network. Now this NOFN goes to each panchayat of this country. And there are 250,000 of them. And there are 600,000 villages. So more or less, on an average, each panchayat consists of about 2.5 villages. So what we are doing is we are laying out optical fiber cables which will terminate at each panchayat headquarters, which will ensure that in that panchayat, every village will have access to broadband connectivity. Now, we are not saying that it will be free of cost, but it shall be there. So that's one important, objective or one important statement. And fortunately, we have money for it, we have, agencies for it, and we are going ahead with it. So that's first part, and that is certainly a very, very important component without which it forms the basis in some sense. The second was that one of the, every citizen of this country will have an identity as a matter of right. This identity which is unique, which is authenticable, which is online. So these three things, we said this is what is absolutely required, because in a digital world, if you want to get services digitally, then you need to authenticate yourself digitally. So the only way you can do that is when you have an online identity. An online identity will have other attributes also, which will ensure portability of your entitlements and other kind of stuff. But this is one part. Fortunately, we already have Aadhaar. And Aadhaar, as on day, in fact, yesterday, Aadhaar completed 700 million number. So 700 million people of this country already have a unique identity, which is authenticable, which means anywhere, anytime, you can go with a simple mobile device, you can prove who you are who claim to be. So essentially, this is an extremely powerful tool for service delivery in a digital world. So that's second statement. And fortunately, now the Prime Minister has told us that by end of next year, every person in this country must have Aadhaar number. And actually, this is now we are doing at the rate of 1 million per day, which means about 3 crores per month, and only about 30 crores are left. So next by December of 2015, we would have completed the entire 1.2 billion population with Aadhaar, and they will have, each one will have identity. Now, the second part is financial inclusion is also extremely important, because without financial inclusion in the formal financial sector, you really cannot, have an inclusive kind of growth. So every person must have a bank account number. So every person must have Aadhaar number, every person must have bank account number, so that he is able to participate in the fiscal, financial space of the country. Then we said every person must have a mobile number. And you already know, there are 900 million mobile phones in this country. And therefore, one can imagine, one can assume that every family has at least one mobile number. And 900 million mobile connections are there. And we are sure we have 200 million smartphones. And they are growing at the rate of 7 million per month. So therefore, we think that these smartphones, the mobile phones, they must become the vehicle for delivery of information. They must become powerful tools in the hands of people to get services. So these three things: one, a unique identity number; another, a mobile number; and third, a bank account number. These three numbers will be the numbers of empowerment, which will allow a person to access digital world, digital services, informations, and also will allow him to participate in the financial space of the country. So this is another sort of objective which we are pursuing, and this is not an unrealistic objective. This is a very realistic objective. The next one is, this again relates to digitization of the entire sort of document space in the country. As you know, a person is born, he gets a birth certificate. Then when he goes to a school, school fellows ask him, give me a birth certificate. So he files a birth certificate. Then he goes to college, then they ask for high school mark sheets and certificates. Then he goes to a job market, they are asking, give me your domicile certificate, your caste certificate, your income certificate, all your degrees, etc., etc. So every time a person participates in any activity, applies for anything, he is asked for all kinds of documents. Now these documents have, one is, not only they ask for documents, they also ask for notarized documents, for certified documents. Some magistrates must, magistrate must write on these documents as to this is a real, genuine one. Whether they are genuine or not, one doesn't know. So this is one harassment to the genuine people. It also gives an opportunity to unscrupulous fellows, because they can produce forged documents. We have examples of pilots, flying planes without getting a real training. So this is the reality. So on the one hand, you have harassment to genuine fellows. On the other hand, you provide an opportunity to unscrupulous fellows to get these, manufacture these documents. So what we have said is, every person must have a digital locker where he should be able to store his documents. I mean, we are not saying that he should store his photographs and other kinds of wedding anniversary things, but he should be able to store those documents. At the same time, those fellows at the back end, the people who are issuing these certificates, must digitize they must create a depository of these certificates. So the basic touchstone is, no person shall be asked for a copy of a document which has been issued by another department of the same government or other government. So essentially, if I am central government, I should not ask for certificates of your school certificate, because that university is supposed to be under the education department of the state, which is supposed to have those certificates. So this is actually this is something which we are going to enforce once we are comfortable that we have created that kind of ecosystem. So what we are planning is, we are planning to have a digital locker, and we are architecting it. In fact, as we speak, we already have prepared a document. That document has been shared on that MyGov platform for public consultations, where we are saying, this is the architecture which we are proposing to have this done. So this will facilitate a lot of people. They don't need to give a copy of the document. They just give a reference, a digital reference, URL or whatever. And Aadhaar can become an anchor, because the digital locker can be accessed through Aadhaar number as the basic way to anchor that. So this is another sort of statement. We are also saying, in the financial space, we are saying we shall eliminate cash transactions beyond a certain value. So once you have a system to prove your identity online, once you have a system where you can transact on a, through a mobile device, and therefore you can create a whole ecosystem of BCs, the business correspondents, and every kirana shop owner becomes a business correspondent, then you can eliminate these cash transactions. So this is another statement. We are saying cash transactions beyond a certain value must be really eliminated. We should not have them. So these are some of the statements, some of the things which we are going to do, and each of these statements or each of these aspirational objectives have certain rationale, and there is only a person, they are people-centric rationale. Another part is we are having Mr. Chandrashekhar, in fact, is the originator of the National E-Governance Plan. 2006, you articulated the entire plan like we are articulating Digital India today. He said, there should be certain basic elements like statewide area network, the data centers, the common service centers, and a whole mission mode projects. So they have been going on, and many of them have done great work. But what has happened is technology from 2006 to 2014 has completely changed. And therefore, there are, and unfortunately, when those applications were written in 2006, those applications still continue to exist. And you will not believe, some of our applications are still in what is called a client-server mode. So there's one application in transport which has got 600, sort of places that application runs. And there are 600 licenses of database server, there are 600 licenses, all kinds. So you can understand how inefficient it is. And of course, there are vested interest in getting that happen. So what we are saying is, all these existing applications shall be completely redesigned so as to leverage technology. And what are those technologies? One, there are a large number of platforms which exist now. So each of these applications, for example, for authentication, they had built their own systems. Now we have Aadhaar as an authentication platform. All those applications must leverage Aadhaar as an underlying authentication platform. Many applications require payments of money. Now there are payment gateways available. They were not available then. We must use payment gateways, and it's common standard payment gateway for the entire country, which should get plugged into this application. So there are SMS gateways, payment gateways, these authentication systems. All these platform components must be integrated. Most importantly, and from your perspective, the product perspective, none of these applications talk to each other. So for example, we have a criminal justice system. So we have an e-courts project going on, which is basically, gives the case, what is the next date for my case, and cause list, as you know. So these things are there. Similarly, there is a system for jails. There are systems to monitor who is there, who are the prisoners in the jail. There is a system for criminal and crime tracking system, which is known CCTNS, which essentially from the lodging of FIR to all kinds of other stuff happens. There is a prosecution wing of that entire criminal justice system. So you have jails, you have courts, you have police stations, and you have prosecution. Now, these systems exist, but they don't talk to each other. So if a judicial system wants to know which this person accused, whether he's in jail or not, he has no way to communicate with that application. So there are no APIs which can talk, where applications can talk to each other. Also, there are no APIs on the basis of which product people, applications people can build applications on top of it. So for example, for me, if I'm a litigant, the most important thing for me is what is the next date of my case. Now, I have to go to the website of that particular court, and then I have to plug in my case number, and then I have to get in. Why cannot that website or that particular system expose an API which should be on top of which you can build mobile apps, where from your mobile you should be able to figure out as to what is the next date of your case? So what we are doing is, in all these areas, health, education, criminal justice system. I mean, think of agriculture. We are ensuring, we are in fact coming up with an open API policy where we are mandating that the existing applications shall expose APIs. We are also saying existing applications now should migrate to a much more modern system. They should be redesigned, rewritten, and so that we should have what is called a common application software for a single application using the multi-tenancy and all those kinds of concepts. So essentially, we are modernizing the existing application space in the government so that those applications can become user-friendly, are able to be exposed to the people, and are able to serve the purpose for which they are made. The purpose of these applications is not to facilitate the working of the government. That could be one of the purposes. But the most important purpose is to help people. And that purpose, that is what we are trying to do, is that we should re-engineer that. Now, the second part, which is the applications, the infrastructure, and the third part is digital empowerment of people. Ultimately, if you don't enable them to access these digital resources, you are just creating a facility which nobody will be able to access because they are not capable of accessing it. So while tools may exist, you need to provide some digital literacy to the people. So there's a huge program of digital literacy which has started. There's also a huge program of providing training to people so that they are able to participate in jobs, get IT jobs and things like that. So there is that thing which is going on. Another important issue is we are importing goods, electronic goods worth $100 billion per annum. Our manufacturing capacity is of the order of $30 billion, and that figure is also highly suspect. Our value add is of the order of just about 5 to 7%, which means effectively we are adding the value of the order of about 1.5, 2 billion or $3 billion. 10% if you assume 30 billion to 10%, $3 billion. Now, 97 billion is what we are importing. And now everything is getting digital, electronic. So what the forecast is that in the next 5-6 years, by 2020, we shall be, our requirement of electronics goods will be about $400 billion per annum. And if we don't improve our domestic manufacturing, this whole thing is going to become completely unsustainable, because that import bill will exceed the import bill of oil. So therefore, one important part, and which is a part of the Make in India program of the Prime Minister of this government, is that we are promoting domestic manufacturing in the electronics industry. And there are a large number of tax incentives, incentives on CapEx, OpEx, infrastructure, all these things are being given. That's also a part of Digital India. In addition, there are certain other programs, early harvest programs, which can be done very quickly. You must have seen the biometric attendance part of it. It is again leveraged on Aadhaar. And biometric attendance, by the way, some people are calling it some surveillance, and you are doing surveillance of the government servants. It's not the case actually. We are just digitizing that platform. Currently, people are making attendance on a paper register. We just providing a digital platform on which they can make attendance. Where is the question of surveillance and things like that? So we are doing, but that is not really the objective of it. The objective of this is to prove the power of authentication, which means, and prove the power of point of presence, which means now you can extend this to the hospitals. The doctors don't come, nurses don't come. You can extend it to schools, the teachers don't come. You can extend it to midday meals, where people corner the money. There is a huge leakage taking place in the schools, where they feed just 20 children, and they charge for 200 children in the midday meal scheme. So there are a large number of opportunities, PDS, for example. So there are a large number of areas where this system can be replicated to reduce leakages. In the PDS system, India is spending 80,000 crores per annum. And now the food security bill comes, we will be spending 1.25 lakh crore per annum, 125,000 crores per annum on the subsidy itself. Now, if we are, and various studies have said that, there's at least 30% leakage in the PDS system. If we are able to, solve that problem, even if we had 20% of that, we'll be saving 25,000 crores per annum. We can build highways, we can build a lot of infrastructure. So I think what is going to happen is the technology must become an enabler to ensure that system leakage is reduced, to ensure that things become more efficient, to ensure that India becomes really a digitally empowered society and a knowledge economy. So that's the broad, maybe there are many things which have been left out, but I think some of these things I wanted to share with you. And what we are seeing is there's a huge scope for friends like you, private sector, because ultimately government is not going to do anything. Government will just provide the market, the demand. Ultimately, all of us are getting involved. And I would say that we are, since last about 2-3 months, we have had a number of meetings and sessions with friends like you, where we are deliberating and brainstorming to architect some of these things, because my view is, and my experience from Aadhaar says, that if you architect and design a program well, it will work, it will scale up, it will have the speed, and the Prime Minister, as you know, talks of scale, speed, and skill. So scale and speed will come only when you design it well, otherwise it will become a very small program and a pilot at the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. I think that was really very, very nice. I'm sure it was music to the ears of everybody sitting here and listening to you. And it's a very aspirational vision of what Digital India would look like. We have more than 1,700 delegates at the NPC, and we have a select group of 250 or 300 people here, a lot of whom have many questions for you. But let me just pose a few questions which will sort of set the ball rolling and set the context. You have already given a hint that the private sector should play an important role in the whole of Digital India. What kind of a role do you think they can play, and how do they actually get the opportunities? You've given a hint when you said that have open APIs. There's also the Open Data Initiative. But to all this group of CEOs and promoters, how do they actually link into these opportunities? How do they spot them? How do they actually identify how they can come in? Any insights that you can give them on that?
Sir, as I explained to you, that all this, implementation of these concepts and these visions and these, aspirational statement is going to require a lot of work. And most of this work is going to be done by the private sector. That's one part. We will involve the private sector and the industry at the design stage itself, as I explained to you, sir. Then I am aware of the fact that previously there have been certain flaws probably in the contractual agreement which we have had in various programs and projects in which the industry participated. We are going to look into this, and we are going to take those inputs and redesign these contracts and SLAs and all those things, so that every time they don't require clearance on file, certain things must become automated, so that you don't have a complaint, we don't have a complaint. And lastly, the way these programs are going to be implemented, they will open up a large opportunities. For example, open API, as I talked about. Then, the digitization exercise which is going to take place, the ecosystem of the depositories which is going to come up. Now, who will hold these depositories? Government is not going to hold these depositories. So basically, the entire thing will be, what we are interested, sir, is that we should be catalysts in developing a healthy ecosystem where people are able to participate, people are able to build applications, people are able to, put their resources, and are able to contribute to this vision of the Government of India.
So when you say that, a lot of this will be done by the private sector, do you mean that there will be projects which will be designed and then executed by the private sector, or do you leave some space through whether it's open APIs or in the project format and structure, where the companies can actually come in with ideas of their own. What's the role of innovation?
It will happen in both ways. It will happen as one is that the design of these projects or these, sectoral things will be done in such a manner that there is already a healthy ecosystem created where private sector, without getting into a contractual arrangements with the government, is able to sort of participate. And, and this will be B2C kind of participation where people will be using your applications to access the data and systems of the government. You can build telemedicine systems, for example. You can build education systems, e-education systems. So this is one part. Second, of course, there will be a number of projects which will come out of it, and where obviously there will be opportunity for the private sector to participate. So both ways. And basically what we want to say is this project part will be the minimalistic, in the sense that that should be creating the core. But the rest of it we will try to ensure that it's a very open kind of architecture and open systems.
Okay. A lot of these companies are in different areas like, healthcare, financial services, of course, e-commerce and data analytics, all these kinds of areas are there. And clearly, Digital India is not just the Department of IT, it's every single department. How do we create a situation, or how do you envisage that a situation will arise where they will all be thinking of innovating for India and looking at those areas, and maybe, because a lot of those things that you have talked about will also have to be done by those departments. So how would this actually translate across the whole of government? Is there any mechanism that you have in mind or any mechanism that is being thought about for that?
So one is that there are a number of areas, in fact, we have not done much work. For example, data analytics. The applications which have been put in place in your mission mode projects, these applications have churned out a huge amount of data. But that data is just kept somewhere, that data is not being subjected to a real meaningful analysis or meaningful analytics. Now this, once you open up this space and once you enable that to happen, I'm sure there'll be a lot of, big data industry, big data players will come in. So what will happen is that the way these applications are structured, that will give a lot of opportunities to the industry. Secondly, sir, what we are doing is, we have created formal structures which will ensure participation and, a vibrant kind of interchange of views of the industry with the government. For example, there is an advisory group chaired by the minister. There will be various other advisory groups, sectoral advisory groups at the level of the departments. There is an apex committee. Of course, apex committee does not include the industry in a big way, but nevertheless, these are there. And what I want to propose is that we shall be creating more and more such institutional mechanisms which will enable a healthy and vibrant interactions to take place between the industry and the government.
Excellent. Very nice.
So I am very clear that this massive effort cannot be done by the government. Yeah. We do not have even the intellectual, we know what we want, but we don't know how this can be done. And we don't even have ideas whether this is the right way to do it or not. So therefore, we will always fall back on your brilliance, on your expertise, on your competence to make these things happen.
Sure. I think that's again very encouraging. And
to become as big as, say, an Android opportunity or something of that sort. How do you expect startups, we just mentioned large companies have issues working with the government. How can we look outside the box or step outside the box to give this opportunity to smaller, younger, innovative startups, which is what the whole idea of this summit is?
You said set-top?
Startups, small companies.
No, you said, I heard set-top boxes.
Startup company.
Yeah, startup I heard, but maybe. So as I said, this is, one is, from a financial point of view, let me put it this way, we had some kind of concept of an innovation fund. This is, helping startups to grow and to provide financial kind of, what is called angel funds, one, and then what you have, venture capital funds and all that. So we are creating a mother venture capital fund, which will fund daughter funds, which will be able to, provide the capital for the startup. That's one part. But in the Digital India, I think I explained that we are we are deliberately and consciously trying to create an ecosystem where which you can, participate in this entire Digital India, whatever is going to happen. So, yes, certainly, certainly. And believe me, the way our Prime Minister is, in fact, let me share one more thing with you. I gave this presentation on Digital India on 7th of August. And he took for 2 hours. After that, some people said, yeah, Mr. Sharma, now you should bring this proposal into the, cabinet and all process these files. And to which the Prime Minister said, no, I approve it. And he said that, Mr. Sharma, you can take as much money as you want from me because I am convinced that the return on investment will be 400 times, four times the return in 1 year. So with the kind of, he suo moto increased the budget of the department by 700 crores. So we are not going to have any fund constraints. Only thing is we should really do it well and we should implement it well because, stating these vision statements and aspirational statement is one thing, but making it happen is quite another, believe me. And we have to be very clear as to how do we, and I'm sure startups and product companies and you will have a huge role to play in this, friends.
I think here out of 250 people, you have 250 people waiting to make it happen. Anyone else? Yeah. Mr. Tiwari.
Sir, I'm Satish Tiwari, Additional Chief Secretary, IT and Electronics, West Bengal. I say hello to all participants here also. Very interesting and very elaborate articulation of the Digital India, sir. Thank you very much. I also learned some new things. Of course, we have received your letters and all which we are implementing. Just 2-3 observations. Like all big programs, states, we will participate in it. We are also helping the ecosystem through MMPs, briefly as mentioned, through infrastructure development, NOFN, all that we are preparing the framework. We also feel that we need to take it beyond Tier 1 cities. So Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, we are building up our IT hubs as well as electronic manufacturing clusters. Simplification of certain procedures will help us even in setting up the state data centers, which we will separately take up bilaterally. But just an example, it gives me a hope that that is being thought into now. We are going to have a global business summit in Calcutta in 6th to 8th of January. One of the sectors is this also, electronics, both software and hardware. I will request for support also from you, sir, in that.
Maybe we can take that offline,
Yeah,
but is
yeah,
there any
yeah,
question specifically that you have, or we can move?
No, sir. We
Okay,
will support
Thank you.
the ecosystem and
Thank you.
participation. That in fact, an
That's
observation,
welcome.
sir.
That's
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you. Welcome. Any question? Yes. Yes, please. Okay.
Good evening. My name is B.V. Jagdishan. Wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. It's also great to see all the things that we read in newspapers, especially hearing some of the anecdotes that you have. For many of the kind of things that we are talking about, what I feel is we lack investment heavily into research. So in order to have sustainability, whether this is the product aspect of it or anything that we are doing, right? It requires research investment. I'm just curious to understand, is there any thought process that's going on within the government right now to initiate, fundamental research, which is very, very essential for sustainability?
There are a number of things which are going on. One is that we have a program where we are funding 300 PhDs into electronics and software and in computer science essentially. So that part we will be doing through the universities and institutions. So that's one part. Secondly, we are also changing the method of doing research, not the basic research, but the applied research of creating things by our own institutions. As Mr. Chandrashekhar is aware, we have in the Department of Information Technology, we have a number of institutions. We have CDAC, we have CMAT, we have other kinds of institutions which are doing some development in different areas. Now, Samir, for example, which does work in strategic electronics. Now, the way these things are being done here is more like inbreeding, I give a research project to this institution, that institution gives to this. What we are now changing the model to is some kind of contracted research through universities, through, maybe not industry, why not? So this way, we will have more outcome-oriented, research, which should happen. Otherwise, people just keep on reinventing the wheel. Something which has already been researched 10 years back, they are now, producing that product, which never sees the light of the day in some sense. So we are very much focused on this high research deliverables, and PhD is about a 400 crore investment which we are doing in actually creating PhDs in the area which is specific to us, which is software and largely electronics.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Hi, this is Raji from LensBricks. I have been in the industry for 10 years and now started a company in India. And there are two big hurdles. One is on the hardware. So could you elaborate if there is any hardware policy? Because any hardware that I receive from abroad, it gets stuck in customs, sometimes for a month. The other part is design shortage. There is a severe shortage of highly qualified design professionals from industrial mechanical design and others. So any improvements to hardware policy or STP policy, manufacturing, how can these be improved in India?
So you mean anything to make it easier to get the hardware for your work and for getting more design engineers into the field?
No, I think in fact, if you are importing hardware for doing something, for manufacturing something or for designing something, that is already in fact free from import duty. So that should maybe there is some operational issue which will be there, but what we are doing is to promote the domestic manufacturing. We are not only giving these incentives. For example, just to illustrate to you, one is on establishing electronics manufacturing cluster. Government has a subsidy of 50% capital investment is subsidized. Similarly, if a person puts a unit, then 25% of the capital expenditure is given back. If that unit exports, 5% is given as an export incentive. If the unit imports machinery, that machinery, there is no import duty. So all these provisions exist. Maybe at...
there is just bureaucracy that so many documents are required to be submitted to get even a small piece of electronic.
I agree with you. Bureaucracy is actually the biggest problem of this country. And I'm being very, I'm not being sarcastic, I'm being very honest with you. Somehow we have created systems which are meant to harass people, not to facilitate them. And I don't know whether, sir, you agree with me or not. I'm probably being very harsh on my own tribe. Right. But this is a fact. Some people, interpret these laws also. Their laws are good, there are provisions. But sometimes the customs inspector will interpret it, and at least nothing else, he has the power of nuisance. He will be able to harass you for some time. I agree with you. What we are doing is more and more, we are actually creating automated systems. So for example, eBiz platform, which is now operational, that platform will be able to, is a single window to get all kinds of licensing. Similarly, for customs and central excise and all those, we are automating, and these systems, as I talked, they should talk to each other. So while certainly you may have a specific issue, we are trying to address systemic issues to ensure that such discussions go away.
I think we are running a little short of time. So Mr. Sharma will be here for dinner, and some of you who may not have got the opportunity to raise the question now can do so over the dinner. But I'm sure all of you have seen the kind of passion which drives him, and which has actually brought him all the way just for this session from Delhi, all the way, in spite of having an early morning meeting tomorrow. A big hand to Mr. R.S. Sharma. Thank you very much for coming here. It's great to have had you here.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure this is an inspiration to all those who've been innovating for the world to also innovate with India in mind and innovate for India as well. Thank you.
And thank you very much, sir. I really feel honored and privileged to be with you, and it's always inspiring. When I was in UIDAI, in the 4 years that I was there, I was coming here every month. So I have already come about 50 times to Bangalore, and every time I come here, I feel a different energy. So maybe it's my own self-interest which brought me here. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, warm round of applause to these two towering personalities who really architected the digital India.